From weighing over 500 pounds to having massive teeth, I'm Bob. But I don't weigh over 500 pounds or have massive teeth. However, I'm going to show you 9 of the largest snakes in the world. Number 9. The boa constrictor. Now, the boa constrictor is arguably mostly recognized for being huge. They can grow up to 5.5 meters, which is 18 feet long for you in America, and enough to scare most people just by saying it out loud. And they could also weigh around 45 kilograms, which is substantial for a snake of that size. Mostly found in rainforests, deserts, and even the savanna, the boa constrictor can be quite comfortable wherever it exists. And if you're wondering where exactly it likes to roam, well, it can be found mostly in Central and South America. Another place that it finds quite attractive is in trees. The boa constrictor is really good at climbing and likes to be up high, sometimes spending its whole life there. It should be noted, though, that they do know how to swim, so you may want to watch out if you take a dip in these areas. Look up and look down, and if you decide to hang out in the jungle, look all around. When it wants to eat, it usually targets wild boars, deer, monkeys, and even birds, and can use its tongue to sense prey via its smell. The boa constrictor is one of the most famous types of snakes in the world for a good reason, and its size alone ensures its place on my list. A kind of scary fact, though, a lot of people get them as pets and then don't really know how to handle them because they get so big. So, if you are walking around in Florida, be especially careful because they're everywhere. Number 8. The yellow anaconda. While no anaconda is as large as the ones seen in horror films, you know the ones I'm talking about, they're still not ones to be messed with. The yellow anaconda can grow up to be 15 feet long, which, if you think about it, is probably double the height of a very tall human. Thankfully, depending on where you live, the yellow anaconda is only found in South America, and even only in marshes, rivers, and swamps, and anywhere damp. Just like many snakes that are this size or larger, they use their massive frames to constrict their prey until life is literally squeezed out of them. And the anaconda isn't afraid to use its size to take out prey like deer, caimans, or even turtles. So basically, if this snake wants you for dinner, it's probably going to get you. Be thankful, though, it doesn't have eyes for humans. Stay tuned for another anaconda, though, coming up. And now for number 7. But first, if you're new here, be sure you're subscribed. I want to bring you more awesome videos in the future. What do you think the largest snake is in the world today? Put your answer in the comments below, because it's coming up. Number 7. The Indian python. A quite large snake, and one that has a particular set of skills that make it a skilled predator. For example, they're very adept at climbing trees, making it so that any animals trying to flee will find it really hard to get away. They're also really good swimmers, giving them another avenue to find and kill food. Their skin helps with that. It's patterned in a way that helps them blend into their surroundings. The Indian python will typically hunt at night using special receptors in their pits that can help them detect what's around them, despite the darkness that's surrounding. Though they do like to eat rodents and various small mammals, they're not above going for birds or even amphibians. Whatever you can get, you get. Like many snake species, the Indian python is known to be a very solitary creature, preferring to live alone, hunt alone, and even more, only coming out to meet its own kind when mating season rolls around. Number 6. The amethystine python. The largest snake in Australia is known as the amethystine python. This massive snake is one of the longest and largest snakes in the whole entire world, coming in at about 25.5 feet at its maximum length. They also have an interesting nickname, the scrub python, though I'm pretty sure it's not meant in a disrespectful way. Like the Indian python, this one does most of its hunting at night, focusing on rats and bats and birds and amphibians to feed itself whenever it gets hungry. It also uses a special heat-seeking chemical to find its prey, but as an ambush predator, it waits for the right moment to strike and then goes for it. Police on patrol in Queensland, Australia, had to wait for a 5-meter-long snake to cross the road, and it took its sweet time to do it. Now, if you do have the desire to go and look for this snake, you'll want to search around Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Indonesia in its rainforests and grassland areas. That's most likely where you're going to find it. Number 5. The African rock python. Africa's home to a lot of creatures and many predators, including one of the largest snakes in the world today, the African rock python. And if it's not already obvious, this is the biggest snake in all of Africa, with a length that goes around 22.5 feet, weighing up to 114 kilograms. It's real big, and that's what makes it a deadly threat in Central and Western Africa. Primarily, it will make its home in the grasslands and swamplands of the region, as well as its rainforests, and like many of these snakes, it can adapt to wherever it goes. That's a perfect segue to its skin, which is colored in such a way that it can perfectly blend into its environments, which is really bad for any prey that happens to come near. Speaking of which, the African rock python has quite a diverse diet, including some rather large prey, but they do usually eat rodents, antelopes, monkeys, pigs, monitor lizards, and crocodiles. That's right, the python has the capability to eat an antelope, a monkey, and even a massive crocodile. Though it apparently comes at a cost, because when they do, they only live for another year after that. Another interesting thing is that during the dry season of Africa, the rock python becomes dormant and won't move in order to conserve its energy. Number 4. The Burmese python. These pythons can grow to be around 23 feet long, weighing up to 137 kilograms. Now, like a certain other python that you're going to meet later, the Burmese python lives in Southeast Asia and loves to live in the marsh, the swamps, the woodlands, the grasslands, and even river valleys. One thing, however, that makes the Burmese so interesting is that it actually has very poor eyesight. which you think would make it a poor predator? Because if you can't see, you can't strike, right? Well, the python's made up for that by having chemicals and heat-sensing pits that they use in conjunction to help find their prey. Then, once they do, they use their special teeth to ensure that once they bite down, it's not getting away. So how exactly does that work? Well, their teeth actually curve backwards, allowing them to sink into the flesh of the creature in such a way that they can't be moved or pulled out by the animal trying to get away. Even with these evolutionary tricks, the Burmese python honestly doesn't need that much food to survive. It can go months without needing another meal. Number 3, the reticulated python. Now, if you've ever heard a fisherman talking about the fish that they got was this big, well, snakes aren't immune to such stories. And people who see the reticulated python are so impressed, and perhaps even shocked, that their concept of size can get way out of proportion. Technically, it is the longest snake on my list. But the difference between being longest and biggest, well, longest is length, and biggest and largest is about that and body size. That's your elementary science lesson for today. The reticulated python, however, is indeed the longest living snake in the world, with confirmed reports saying that the longest one ever found was between 30 and 32 feet long. A very big snake indeed. There have also been reports that the reticulated python have been found and are apparently 40 to 90 feet long, but that's why you can't really trust those big fish stories. As far as location, you can find it in Southeast Asia. It likes to live in the rainforest and is mostly found on the ground, which is a real problem, because while you might be able to see it better due to its size, you might find it hard to avoid it, which is unlikely at times because they're nocturnal. And did I mention they're very, very aggressive? Now, while they don't technically eat humans, would you really want to take that risk by provoking one? I didn't think so. Number 2, the green anaconda. Now, do you remember when I asked you what the largest snake in the world was? What did you put in the comments? Well, as it turns out, it's the green anaconda, also known as the giant anaconda, and it can weigh in at about 550 pounds, having the largest length to weight ratio. Now, like most species of snake, the length of the green anaconda can change, being as small as 18 feet, which, in my opinion, is not small at all, but at its maximum can be up to 30 feet long. Now that is a really big snake, and as far as weight, they're twice as heavy as the reticulated python, which is also scary, to be honest. Yet despite the size, they aren't exactly what you'd expect them to be. For example, you'd probably expect something of this size to be venomous, but that's not the case, because they're totally not. Even more, they live in rivers and swamps in South America, so they're really easy to avoid if you know where to go and where not to go. Oh, and they don't really like to eat humans, so that's somewhat comforting as well. But what do they eat? Well, they have a typical giant snake diet, eating deer and caiman, crocodiles, fishes, and turtles. Green anacondas are ambush predators. They wait for their prey to come, and then they lunge out and strike. Needless to say, they are very frightening creatures, but they're still not number one. Number 1, the Titanoboa. This massive serpent was apparently the apex predator in the ancient world after dinosaurs went extinct, and its size is estimated to be about 48 feet long, weighing 1.5 tons. Now, that's like the size of your car. What's also interesting about it is how the Titanoboa was even discovered, for it's actually a fairly recent discovery, one that's only about 15 years old. In Colombia, a student would be visiting a coal mine when he found a fossil of a leaf. Now, just by itself, it would not have been all that great, except that it seemed to be from an era known as the Paleocene epoch. This got the attention of a whole lot of other archaeologists and scientists who then went deep into the mine to find fossils of creatures that used to live in the earliest versions of the rainforests in South America. One of the fossils they uncovered was the vertebrae for the Titanoboa, though they didn't really know that at first because they never thought that a snake could be that big. But it was, and the research continued. Eventually, the team would find skull fragments from the Titanoboa, which is actually pretty incredible because snake skulls are known to be brittle. So for 3 fragments to remain preserved for so long is amazing. The Museum of Natural History made an exhibit about it, and numerous specials about the creature have been filmed and produced. I think that one thing we can all be grateful for, though, is that the Titanoboa is not around anymore. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these massive snakes? Have you ever owned a snake? And how was the experience? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Be sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time.